Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to the 6 p.m. City Council meeting of December 3rd, 2019. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present except for Council Member Lopez, who is asked to be excused momentarily while he handles family errand, and Council Member Heyer, who will be joining us shortly via telephone. Correct? So we'll look for that as well. First, I've asked Council Member Chaburka to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are you okay? Do you need to do the Heimlich right there? Okay.
Thank you. Please consider joining us for a moment of silence. Thank you. First item on our agenda is our recognition of the Ogden High School girls soccer team. We've asked Councilmember Blair to lead us through that.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Nadolski. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I might need a drink of that. We're talking about Ogden High, so if all of you would bow in reverence, that would make me even more happy. The Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize the 2019 Ogden High School girls soccer team for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. It reads, the Ogden High School girls soccer team had a phenomenal season that finished with a state championship, their third in school history and the first since 2011. Their work ethic and dynamic scoring attack led to a record of 11-1 in region play to earn the Region 10 championship and an overall record of 18-2. The Standard Examiner recognized this talented Tiger team with 8 players receiving all-area honors. 3 players, including the All-Area MVP, were named to the All-Area First Team. 2 were named to the Second Team, 2 were named to the Third Team, and 1 received an honorable mention. All-Area Girls Soccer Coach of the Year, Skylar Stam, Assistant Coaches Sterling Castle, Fernando Cruz, and Sayla Bueller did an outstanding job leading the Tigers to a successful season. We are proud of the manner in which they have represented our city. The team's vision, play, and exceptional results have unified our residents and strengthened the sense of community pride in Ogden. With that, I will go ahead and ask that Coach Stam and Coach Castle and all other members of the team come up and we'll present you with this plaque.
Talk to these you because I can't hug you. Awesome. Congratulations. If you want, we'll take a picture.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Guys, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Thanks for coming. Your dad was nervous. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. There's 2, 3 of my team. That wasn't mentioned in there. I'm going to put that in there.
Great job,
Yeah,
guys.
awesome. Hey, there it is. There's the look.
Saved it for a picture.
Yeah. So we'll take a picture right here. Well, we don't need them. It's not the girls' basketball team.
Good. But it is the mayor.
Yeah.
Everyone look at me. Great, awesome. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you.
I'm dying.
Please.
Right there. Look at that. Hold it. Yeah, on the other side. On the other side.
Hey, I just wanted to take a second and thank you guys for the honoring the girls. It's kind of neat to see it go full circle because about 5 or 6 years ago was when we started the idea for that complex that the girls play at now. And I know that Ogden City had a huge role in it. So it's cool to just see kind of full circle the community get involved in something so big like that, and then have the girls be able to represent Ogden High in the community and win a state championship playing there. And it's just really neat. And so I really appreciate all the things that you guys have done to support us. And thanking you for taking the time to do this tonight. That's really neat. I know you guys have lots of business to attend to, so thanks for squeezing us in. That's neat. So thank you. I appreciate everything.
Hey, Coach, before you guys go, we're not squeezing in anything. We're prioritizing you guys. There's a reason you're first on the agenda, okay? But I think Councilmember Blair has some things he wanted to say before you go.
Yeah, well, I would like to say I noticed in the recognition that none of their AYSO soccer coach was mentioned, so I'll just take that credit right now for some of them. But going along with what Skylar said, after they won the state championship, I sent a picture of one of my daughters with Skylar standing at the complex. Not even thinking, I said, here's my daughter standing next to a state champion coach. And she sent back, she said, that's amazing. That's before the complex was even built. And I didn't even recognize that. So it is exciting to see the time and the effort that these coaches and players have put in, not only to themselves, but to our community. And it's exciting. And as far as Skylar goes, I can't think of a better role model to be around those young women. She's one of my favorite people of all. And Sterling has really put a lot of heart and hard work and time at Ogden High, and it's exciting to see his efforts rewarded also. So they're a great group of young women. They played very hard. At the end of the game, I said they looked kind of tired. And Skylar said to me, they should be. She said they gave everything they had, and it was fun to watch them and fun to see. So congratulations, and hope we can do this again.
Yeah, we hope to have you back next year, and you'll be first on the agenda again because you're a priority here. Thanks for the comments, Councilmember Blair. I just want to say my own piece. I had an opportunity to watch you guys this year too a few times, and you were awesome to watch. On the field, the way that as aggressive as you guys are is such a good thing for my two girls, 8 and 10, Hazel and Millie, to see you guys do. It shows them what they need to do, not just on the field, but the attitude that they need to have in life. They saw in all of you. And in addition, I really appreciated when we brought our girls to the soccer camp that you guys hosted. They loved it. That facility was beautiful, but the day was fantastic, topped off with ice cream, right? And thank you. I don't know your name, but you're Hazel's favorite player. And you were very kind outside of your time on the pitch, talking with Hazel, and I just want to thank you for your kindness as a person for doing so. It made a big difference for her. So thanks. Okay, next item on our agenda are items of common consent. Fiscal year 2020 budget amendment, annual action plan, amendment number 1 to set a public hearing for that item.
Chair, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the item listed under common consent and set the public hearing for December 17th, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Councilmember Chaburka to adopt the item of common consent. This is a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. On to our reports from the Planning Commission. This is a petition for amendments to reuse of non-residential structure ordinance. Our very own Greg Montgomery. Long time no see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. This is a petition that had been filed with the city, and the Planning Commission has reviewed it and is giving their recommendation to you tonight. What the request is to look at what is called commercial-style buildings that are zoned residential. So they have a non-conforming status to them. They're allowed to be there, but the uses are dictated generally by the zoning. In this case, though, many of these buildings were constructed for a complete different purpose than what maybe the zoning would allow. And so the city has adopted provisions to allow these buildings to be reused rather than sit vacant. And the petition that had been filed with the city requested that in the list of uses that new uses be allowed for these type of buildings. One would be online sales office and also a small distribution warehouse as two new uses to be added as possible considerations. The specific property, as you can see on the photo there, is 151 27th Street. And this is what it looks like. It had been built as a heating and air conditioning warehouse supplier and has sit vacant for several years. It was originally zoned commercial when it was built, as well as a building to the right in this photo, which is now being used by Weber Human Services. But when the homes were built to the east, this entire street was rezoned to residential. So one of the things the Planning Commission looks at when they have petitions that ask for changes to the ordinance is to look at, are we protecting the single-family neighborhoods? Do we create safe and livable and attractive areas? And that with these new uses, will they create any adverse impact to those objectives? And do we create a use that will support both the use of the building and the neighborhood context and keep the neighborhood without adverse impacts? So as the Planning Commission discussed this, with those three things in mind of protecting and meeting the needs, and then looking at adding possible new use and what restrictions might be needed, they discussed these things back and forth. One of the unusual situations in this was the fact that this was really asking for a warehouse use. Most of those commercial style buildings that exist in the city were generally old markets, small single-story buildings. Maybe the owner had lived in the rear of the building, and so they were kind of in scale and proportion to a neighborhood, and the neighborhood has grown up around it. In this one, the building was built as a commercial building, and then the neighborhood to the east came in later. And so it was started with the context of being commercial, and then the neighborhood was added to this. So it's an unusual situation from the other conditions that exist in the city. So as the commission discussed back and forth of are there conditions that may need to be added, they felt that one of the things that would be appropriate is in this list of allowed uses, as you can see what could be there, offices, daycare, personal services, laundromat, restaurants, stores, grocery store. They started to look at some of those uses, especially like the grocery store or the restaurant, and realized there's a lot of activity and traffic that takes place with those type of things. So at first they felt kind of hesitant to look at an addition to those list of uses. As they discussed the impacts of the last three uses especially, they felt a lot of times this may not be any different, the warehousing versus a restaurant or a store that has more turnover than a warehouse does, and that maybe there would be a place for this to fit in. They also looked at some common requirements that apply to all reuses, that they can't expand the building or add additional parking, so it's contained as it is. You've got to maintain the site. Hours of operation are controlled. There's no drive-up or pickup windows. Dumpsters need to be screened. If it has garbage services, there's no outdoor storage. And as they even thought more about this, they felt it was appropriate to look at making an amendment to the ordinance to allow the warehousing and to allow the online sales office. However, they felt there were some mitigating factors that needed to be added. In their recommendation to you, they had put a condition that in terms of warehousing, it'd be limited to 50% of the footprint of the building, and that if there were deliveries to be made, that they'd take place in a pickup truck. There were two no votes, as you can see on this slide, and those two no votes felt that there was more detail needed of how do you control or regulate this warehouse use. And the other no vote was that it just didn't seem right to be added to a residential zone as a use that could take place. In the work session we had with the council a couple weeks ago, we discussed this, and you asked us as staff to take a look at possible options, as there was some discussion about the pickup size limitation, that many deliveries nowadays, whether it be by UPS or others, are in larger trucks than pickup trucks. And those seem to be consistent in neighborhoods nowadays. Also, to take a look at, are there other controlling factors that may be possible to add? So here are 3 options that you could consider for tonight. First of all, you could accept the Planning Commission's recommendation of adding the warehouse, adding the online sales, limiting the warehouse to 50% of the building, and also restricting deliveries being made by pickup trucks. And that language actually is applied to all uses that fit in that category. The second is to modify the recommendation by deleting the delivery vehicle type. So you'd still go with the 50%, could be applied to any commercial style building in any residential zone, but you would change the delivery method and expand it to the other types of vehicles that generally are found nowadays delivering throughout all the neighborhoods. The third consideration would be to take a look at the warehousing only be allowed for buildings that really were designed to have that type of function to begin with. We took a look at the buildings throughout the city that fit into this category of commercial style buildings in the residential zone, and there are 3 additional buildings besides this one that have overhead doors that were meant for deliveries such as you find in a warehouse. And rather than open this up to all non-conforming buildings, we felt it might be more appropriate to say those that were designed with this warehousing doors, those that were designed for the deliveries, limit this warehouse option to those buildings. And as I mentioned, there's 3 others in addition to this one being the neighbor next to this, which also has the overhead doors. 2 others. One is located as an old auto repair facility on Washington and about 700 North. And the other one is on West 7th Street. These were buildings that were done for automotive repair originally, those 2 other buildings. And so those are some items for your consideration and discussion tonight. So we have the Planning Commission recommendation, but you also have some other options to consider based on our work session discussion.
Any questions for Greg?
Chair, I have a question for him. Will you go back to the already allowed uses? So if the owner had wanted to put a laundromat in there, they could, correct?
Correct.
Or a store or a restaurant,
Correct.
even a grocery store,
Uh-huh.
which would allow for delivery trucks anyways, right?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Greg?
I have one. With the option 2, does that eliminate the semis coming into the area also? With
That
the
would be-
type of vehicles?
That, in option 2, let's get over there. We would, in the recommendation we had, it would just eliminate addressing delivery vehicles, as we have not seen problems with existing uses and deliveries that take place. But that's something you could discuss and consider, saying, well, do we want, even though we haven't heard any complaints over the years as we've had this as a use, do we still want to add that limitation of semis? Or since we haven't heard any problems, do we see that as a real problem and leave it as the present ordinance is and not addressing the types of vehicles?
Okay.
I think for me, I mean, just one question about, that we were discussing in the work session was, what would you want to live next to, right? Like, what value does this bring to the community that's living there? And when we talked about the grocery store, et cetera, I mean, certainly it'd be nice to have a grocery store right there for people to go to. But also, at least if there's something actually happening in the building, that's better than an empty building, which is what the case is now. And how long has it been empty?
I'm not sure what the time frame is on.
Yeah, a little while. So, I mean, I think for me, that's kind of it. And then just kind of thinking about the hours of when that delivery, when that activity can happen too, I think makes a big difference. Because even a grocery store can have deliveries at quite early or late hours sometimes too. So that's just something I've thought a lot about.
Yeah, that was a good discussion, and we all ought to be thinking that way when we're looking at these decisions. What do I want to live next to? Because I think those neighbors are asking us to do that. They expect us to do it. But I do like that option 3 has provided us with kind of some flexibility to allow for those uses so that we have beneficial uses in the neighborhood that are far more beneficial than the vacancies. It provides for some options for the vehicle to pull in and to conduct its business while mitigating or minimizing the impact to the neighbors, et cetera. Business hours. There's also some language that minimizes the amount of spaces used for certain uses, therefore making sure it's a lighter use and disturbance. So appreciate you kind of putting that together, that list of options for us.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? Okay.
Receive public input.
Yep. We'll receive public input on this item. I know all you are here nervously awaiting our decision on trucks. And if you care to address the council on this
Mr.
particular
Chair,
item.
you may want to ask the petitioner to address.
Oh, thank you for the reminder.
Petitioner?
Thank you. Sorry, Angel. Let's bring up the petition and then we'll get back to you. Sorry about that. Thanks for the reminder, Glenn. We have Michelle Staker and first Lance and Michelle Staker. Are they here? Thank you. If you have anything you want to contribute, share a few thoughts for a few minutes, you're welcome to. If not, you can just wave me off. Okay.
No?
Thank you for your time and consideration. A unique situation for me and my husband. He cannot be here. He
Okay.
can't speak. So
Thank you, Michelle.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay. Sorry about that, Angel and others potentially. Now we will accept public input on this item.
Angel Castillo, good evening. Thank you for this fun truck discussion. The solutions that Greg has put forth are the option 3 is the best solution, but it is not necessarily the most optimal solution, because if you limit semis, if this goes from being a warehouse in a couple of years and somebody wants to put a restaurant, somebody wants to put a grocery store, there are things that are going to contribute to the community. You're going to impede them as far as their delivery formats, because a large chunk of things do come on semis for restaurants and for grocery stores. And your question of what do you want to live next to is a very valid one. And this is a really unique situation. And I'd like to make sure that you're considering not just one individual, but the city as a whole. Because what we're looking at is changing code based on one petitioner's unique situation. Well, it is unique and it pulls at your heartstrings. You have to make sure that you're looking forward 10, 15 years of what this neighborhood's going to become. So I am in support for the third situation. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to change for all of these, but this is the most workable situation. If you decide that the petitioner does need to be met, and you will change the city code based on one petitioner's request. But make sure that you consider the semi-elimination. While the intent is good to make sure that you're keeping things quiet, all those lists items that you saw might need a semi, and if you take that away, you are definitely pigeonholing that particular usage of that building 5-10 years from now. So I'd like you to consider that, and possibly, if this is new information, maybe table this for a later discussion to fully explore it. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have another taker.
Sure, I never pass up a quick chance to make a comment. Hey, I'm Alan Jones, long time, well, resident of Ogden. In this particular case, when you quickly ask, what do you want to live next to? Anyone who built their house there knew what they were building their house next to. And one should consider historic uses of things of that nature. And I'm a little unclear on whether these changes, as which Ms. Angel commented on whether the limiting of the truck traffic will in fact limit what those other options have. Because if the grocery store can still have a truck, well, then this new use, in theory, should be able to have a truck as well. Anyway, I think this is a reasonable historical use issue and everything, and we should probably consider passing it without restrictions on delivery methods. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We have ourselves a walking encyclopedia on planning. We're in a green shirt today. Maybe would you mind helping address a couple of those comments or some confusion there?
Well, I think there are valid comments, and that's one of the things that the commission struggled with was the other uses can have deliveries of various ways without any limitation. And as the discussion took place with the commission, it was one of, well, but warehousing may have more impact. And then that was the back and forth of what more impact would it have than a restaurant or others who may have more deliveries more often than maybe a warehousing type use. And so I think that's a valid consideration of not having that restriction on vehicle type since we haven't had it up until this point. But I do know there are other people who have concerns about large trucks coming into residential neighborhoods. But I think that's the choice you make is how do you feel about that part? I do think that the option that was discussed tonight of option 3 of having the warehouse use just for those buildings that were designed to have those types of deliveries take place with the larger doors is probably more a reasonable approach for all areas of the city because it does limit it because you can't change the building as part of this non-conforming use. But the building already exists with that type of facility, then why not allow that as one of the uses that can take place there?
Can I
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
make a clarifying point? So when we're talking about option 3 up there, are we also talking about the language that we were given? Those match up? Because in this language, what I'm reading, it says, if we amended, it would be for the warehouse use, comma, deliveries are limited to regular business hours and delivery and pickup vehicles exclude semi-tractor trailers. So all the other uses would still have, that's the way I'm reading it.
Correct.
Because of the comma, it actually means that if it was using it for a
Something
grocery
else
store,
you could do.
they actually could do.
Right.
Okay, just a clarification.
So if you feel that it's not appropriate to put that limitation, you just strike that one phrase out of there.
And Greg, did you say there are 4 buildings that
Total
fit
of
into
4.
this? Total of
who we've
4 throughout the
identified
city.
that have those garage doors.
Yeah.
Or the overhead doors.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? Excuse me. Okay. Thank you, Greg. And it's never easy to strike a balance or to craft a policy that fixes every single thing, but I think we're trying to do our best here. Anybody ready to make a motion on one of these options?
I might take a shot.
Okay.
You ready? Okay, so I move that we amend ordinance 2019-51 to revise the wording for the following sections. Amend section 15-6-3 H1A2 to read, small distribution center or warehouse only when the building has existing overhead delivery doors designed for truck pull-in, provided that this use may not exceed 50% of the building floor area. And I also amend section 15-6-3 H1B9 to read, for the warehouse use, deliveries are limited to regular business hours and delivery and pickup vehicles exclude semi-tractor trailers.
It is. Okay, thank you. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have an amended motion by Councilmember Chaburka, second by Councilmember Blair, to adopt option number 3 with the amended language as presented by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
So,
Sorry.
so this is a motion to amend.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yep. Motion to amend proposed ordinance 2019-51. Is that
So
clarity?
motion to amend is a voice vote.
Okay, thanks. I thought you were looking for clarity on the ordinance. Okay. Motion to amend the ordinance, proposed ordinance 2019-51 by Councilmember Chaburka, second by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for the procedural clarification, Janine. Okay, I think we can entertain a motion to adopt the proposed amended ordinance.
Chair Nadolski,
Yeah.
I propose that we adopt ordinance 2019-51 with the amended language.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember White, second by Councilmember Stevens to adopt the amended ordinance 2019-51. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Right.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. I'm glad we could have a big crowd for that item so you could see all the stuff, all the exciting things you're missing on Tuesday nights. But clearly we have a couple people here. Things like this do matter, so we want to make sure we get it right the best we can. So appreciate everybody's patience. We're on to our next item of new business, Community Renewable Energy Act, House Bill 411. We'll bring up our very own Amy Mabey to give us an intro and some history and background.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Nadolski, for your time. So before you this evening is the Community Renewable Energy Act, Utah House Bill 411. And just for some context on what HB 411 is, so during the 2019 legislative session, the state legislature adopted a bill to allow cities to participate in a goal for pursuing net 100% renewable energy by 2030. And so this came as a result of a collaborative approach between various cities, including Park City, Salt Lake, Summit County, Cottonwood Heights, who wanted some type of mechanism to get to a goal that they had established. And so part of that being adopted allowed other communities to participate in that goal as well. And so the HB 411 does require that that specific goal is set in a resolution and that a resolution is approved and adopted in order to participate in the program. So just a little bit on breakdown timeline with what this entails. So the focus of HB 411, the Community Renewable Energy Act, is energy sourcing. And so it's really bringing in clean energy for power production. And one clarification there too, it's net 100% renewable. So all of the power wouldn't necessarily be coming to the community that's renewable, but the amount of power utilized by the community would come in at that. So with that, establishing the option to establish those goals, the City Council took the initiative to ask our Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee to review this and provide a recommendation. And so the committee had 3 different meeting discussions and then in another discussion actually voted unanimously to recommend approval on September 26th. And so ultimately at this point, it's the council's prerogative to look at considering the resolution. So the council's process has entailed a couple of work session discussions that have had participation from various community groups and also Rocky Mountain Power, Utah Clean Energy, the Governor's Office of Energy Development, and so just really bringing in some key groups, and then also our chair from our Sustainability Committee. So that's been helpful as well. And so this is where we are today, December 3rd. There is a deadline for approval of this, and it is the end of this month. So to give a little bit of context with the timeline, with the breakdown of the Community Renewable Energy Act, and I do have to say this timeline comes with a caveat because there's a lot more that may be interjected into this. We don't have specific timelines with dates associated with when different things will happen, but this is just a very simple, basic breakdown of what the process would be. And so we are here at the resolution level, and if a resolution is adopted, then the council and the city has the opportunity to look at an initial agreement with Rocky Mountain Powder, with the other participating communities, from there to receive the prospective utility rates and to determine, whether or not that best suits the needs of the community, to do some public outreach. And then there's a program application requirement to actually go to the Utah Public Service Commission to determine whether or not the city is eligible to participate. And then the city would, in finalizing that, consider an ordinance. So we are at the resolution level, and I just really want to hit on that pretty heavily because the resolution level does not commit all of these other things to occur. We've worked with our legal staff to confirm that, but it does allow for, to delve into and consider participation along this path. So a resolution, and this breaks down what's contained in your resolution. It's really interesting because the state law says you have to have this goal, but other than that, it doesn't really give a framework for the resolution. So obviously we looked at other cities' resolutions as points to work from, but this does establish that goal of net 100% annual electric supply from renewable resources by 2030. And one clarification there, that would be for participating customers. So for whoever chooses to participate in the program. It allows the city to learn more about HB 411, so to kind of enter into that study phase, see what the cost of the study is initially and determine whether or not to proceed from there, look at those projected rates, possible costs of the city, and then interact more with the public. So adoption of this resolution does not commit the city to participate. The city can discontinue this process at any time. Again, I already hit on that. But and then this resolution also indicates, and this is something that from discussion with you all, we included in this, that if for some reason the city adopts the resolution, goes along this path, and determines this maybe isn't the best fit for the city or it's cost prohibitive, then we can look at actually transitioning to a net 100% renewable energy in a different way. And so the resolution does at least, say that the city is looking to that regardless of whether or not they're able to participate in HB 411 to the full extent. So from discussion and research with various groups, various individuals, and different things that came up, I've worked to compile a balanced pro and con list kind of to what could happen with this. And so in looking at some of the benefits of the resolution, that once again, this is focused on the resolution. This is not focused beyond the resolution at this point. So if you were to proceed with the resolution, you would be able to access all of the information before the city makes a final decision, before looking at the ordinance type thing. It would establish a new citywide goal for renewable energy, which we currently don't have. Improve environmental impacts, increase public education about clean energy, and there is an opt-out provision in the program that is required per state statute. And it could bring economic development opportunities and also help to push technology along. So some of the concerns that have been brought up, that there's not enough information to currently vote on this, which it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. A challenge there. And then the cost of the study and implementation are unknown. And so if you get along the path and don't really know what this is going to cost, that could be challenging to you as well. One of the things that came up is the program doesn't necessarily address our local air quality, so maybe funding could better be focused on that. The required goal may be too ambitious for Ogden, given that the city's starting a little bit later than some of the other communities on this goal. And the opting out may be challenging for users because it's not an opt-in, it's an opt-out. And then costs related to users that are low income or small businesses were concerns that were brought up as well. And then whether or not this is within the role of government. So I tried to compile, and you'll notice on the bottom line, I don't know for sure what all the costs may be that come to the city, but some of the potential points where the city may be asked to help fund participation in HB 411. So with the initial agreement, there would be a study and with the other participating communities that are doing HB 411, and there would be costs associated with that. And so we don't have the amount right now, but if you were to adopt the resolution, that was something that could come before you and allow you kind of another decision point, determine whether or not to move forward. Public noticing, if an ordinance is adopted, there's extensive public noticing required as part of that to allow people to participate in the opt-out provision. City participation in the program. So if the city itself decides to participate in the program, there are costs associated with that, utility costs, which are currently unknown. And one indication we've received is if there's a gap in the number of anticipated participants versus the actual participants, then the city may be required to help cover some of the costs associated with that as well. But again, I don't know all of the costs. I don't even know what the costs may be. And the Public Service Commission really would be a determinant in how those costs are allocated and defined. So just kind of as a benchmark comparison, and we have had some shifting since we initially discussed this. So other Utah communities who are participating in HB 411, there are currently 8 that have adopted resolutions and 5 that are considering, and we're on the consideration list. South Weber is a very new considerer that I just spoke with last week. But one thing to note with this is there's some communities that are not eligible to participate in this. So if they have their own power utility company like Bountiful, Provo has set their own goals, but they have their own power utility, and so it's just a little bit different with, they're not able to participate. And so I don't know if the benchmark is a clear, I guess, visual of what communities are interested in setting a goal, because it doesn't really identify those that are on different power systems. So as part of this, you as a council also asked for some alternative or additional options to HB 411. So what are some other things you can do? What are some other options? And so one of them would be to consider a different goal. Just to clarify, if you are interested in participating in HB 411, you would be required to have the 2030 goal. That is mandatory as part of the program. However, if you were interested in a different goal, you could look at that. With the language that's in the resolution, if you go along the path of HB 411, let's say complete the study or we're at whatever juncture, and then determine that it really is not a good fit for the city, we could go back, we could revise your goal and redefine that for you. That is an option. That's something you as policymakers can determine. And Rocky Mountain Power has indicated a willingness to participate in a separate partnership if the city doesn't want to go along this route. There are some federal grants that could be applied for as well through the U.S. Department of Energy, And there's also the city's participating in a Utah Energy Wise Communities program. And my next slide kind of goes into the details of that, but the council could consider increasing the resources going into that program. But that program is focused a little bit differently because it's on usage and not where the energy is coming from. And some communities have looked at city solar grant programs, kind of maximizing the resources there, creating an energy master plan, and then obviously we have an incredible resource before us with our sustainability committee, and so really looking into tapping into that further and looking at options. So just a very, very quick overview of 2 different programs. So obviously we've discussed tonight the HB 411, but the city is currently undergoing the Utah Energy Wise Communities program and is really kind of leading the charge on that, and it will serve as an example to other communities in partnership with the governor's office, with Utah Clean Energy, Department of Energy, and that includes Rocky Mountain and Questar Dominion Energy. So, pardon me. And so this just kind of shows the contrast between those 2 programs. They are complementary to one another, and they do have different areas of focus, but they do, at the end of the day, provide a positive benefit to the environment. So with that, that's a lot of information. I don't know if there's any questions for me this evening on HB 411.
Amy, you did an excellent job. That is a lot of information, but you clearly and concisely summarize it. Thanks for doing that. And I didn't even catch your slip until you mentioned it, because that same old habit does die hard.
Yeah.
Anybody have questions for Amy?
I mean, I just do have one clarification, just to make sure I'm understanding this right. If you have solar already, then you are already basically opted out, right?
That's my understanding. So residents that are on alternative programs currently would have the option to, automatically be opted out, especially with solar. Yeah.
So, Amy, can you just clarify, if the city were to pass or adopt the resolution and pursue down this path, and then, like you said, we have the opportunity or the option to opt out at any time, to get out if it's not cost prohibitive, what does that do for our citizens? What happens there? Is there any negative impact on them if the city chooses to get out?
I would think there's a messaging impact, obviously, if you set a goal and then have to adjust your goal. But I think also if you go down the road and, let's say, participate in the study, and I have no idea how much money that's going to cost, but let's say it's $100,000. Well, then you're invested in something. And if you drop out later, then maybe that's a little bit challenging to the residents. If there's not interest, then that kind of makes it challenging to invest in something that you're not really willing to pursue. But I think part of it too, depending on what the cost is, and you will have that information prior to making the determination to participate in the study, which appreciate legal's help with that, then it really can kind of help, I guess, alleviate a burden on you to determine where that line is, where cost prohibitive is for the city or citizens.
If I could add to it too, I think I wouldn't say we can opt out at any time, but I think this is a stepwise process, and there are opportunities or options, I'll say, to opt out. And
I think that's an excellent clarification. So I think the state law really lends a lot of flexibility, but obviously if you're in the middle of a 2-year study and you've already invested in that, it would not be a wise decision to pull out at that point because of the investment. And not only of the cost, but of the time. I think, obviously there's some time commitment to this as well that, to take into consideration with being involved in moving forward.
I would like to.
Let's get with Councilmember
Are you
White
asking
real quick.
the question as a user if the city doesn't participate?
Yeah, that was my question.
It was
as
more
a user.
Oh, as a user.
As a user.
Oh, so there is no penalty. The only thing I would say, if the city goes through this process, adopts the ordinance, and then opts out.
Adopts the ordinance or just the resolution?
Well,
sorry.
Okay, no, you're okay. Now you've got me confused. Okay, so I've been focused my presentation on the resolution. So if the city gets to the point where they adopt an ordinance, just like any other user, they could opt out of participating in the program. So I've tried to tweak the language a little bit to discontinue for the city, just to avoid confusion. So if the city discontinues participation during the path, that would be a different thing. So,
Every time we do this, we take a different approach to try and minimize that point of confusion.
I totally get what you're saying, because it will cost more. The more people that opt out, it will cost everybody else more. And the city could be held accountable for that if there's a gap in the plan.
That is
what you're saying or asking about.
Yes and yes. Yes and no.
Yeah.
And to Councilmember Chiburka's point, I think obviously as part of this study, they really will try to get a really close ballpark number on how many participants there will be. And the Utah Public Service Commission ultimately adopts the rates. And so it's not Rocky Mountain Power that gets to adopt that, but it's the Utah Public Service Commission gets to determine that this rate is appropriate. And they, at some point in the equation, do consider low income users in that. But once again, we don't really know right now where that lies.
Yeah, one thing we tried to clarify when we worked on teeing this up for tonight is that, tonight we're considering step one, right? It's the resolution. That's why she geared her presentation that way. But tonight's decision is about investing a little bit to hopefully learn a lot. But at the same time, even if that little bit, we don't know how much it's going to cost us, but that's one of the opt-out options is we can back out of the contract that this resolution authorizes if it's an exorbitant amount. But right now we're just focused on that first step tonight because there are a lot of the what ifs and what about questions that continue to come up that are much further down the stepwise process. But tonight is the first step.
And to your point, Chair Nadolski, and I'm so sorry, Councilmember Stevens, I will let you interject in just a moment, but I think the main, and I guess just to go back to that slide with what the resolution entails, the main thing that you all are considering tonight with the resolution is that city goal right now. So right now we don't have a goal. So is that something you all want to have? Do you want to establish this goal, and do we want to move forward on this goal? And then it's moving from there, and do we want to use this as a mechanism to move forward with that? And so the resolution would also kind of move to that as well. So it's really focused in on that portion right now.
Thanks for patience, Councilmember Stevens. Your question.
I think what will clear it up a little bit, if she goes to that slide that shows where we're at, and then right there.
There you go.
Are each of those dots, do we have an option to opt out at that point, or when is that process generated?
So from what I understand, and legal can correct me if I'm wrong, please feel free to jump in, Gary. But any time before the city expends any funds, they would have the option to opt out. The language in the state law, is pretty loose with the ability to discontinue participation in the program. And so, however, at some of the points in this, it probably wouldn't make sense to opt out. Just because, if you've done the initial agreement and then get the prospective rates, it's almost like you've already done that investment. So it maybe doesn't make sense not to do public outreach to see what the public thinks about it versus just making a cold determination that you think they can or can't afford something. And then the program application is really interesting, and I don't anticipate that the Utah Public Service Commission will deny participation for communities, but that doesn't mean that can't happen, just based on the way that state law is written. And so there is a chance that the city could go through the whole process and the Public Service Commission could say for whatever reason the city can't participate and deny the city participation at that point.
I think where we're at now, it opens the opportunity to go down that road. It doesn't mean that that will be our end purpose, because if there's elements that are too extreme, then we would not continue with that. But I imagine when we look at the initial agreement, and especially the prospective utility rates, would tell us a great deal of whether this is affordable or it is not for our citizens. So
yeah, definitely.
That's what I would think.
Hence my maybe tonight, if we're considering spending a little to learn a lot.
Right.
Okay, do we have more?
I have another quick question. So only 8 communities have signed on to this out of 248 cities across. I don't know how many have their own power suppliers, but it doesn't seem like there would be that many out of that 248. So why do you think only 8 of?
Well,
one of them's a county.
Yeah. Of at least 3 of the participants, they had pre-existing goals. And it's kind of interesting looking at the history of that. I think Councilmember Blair asked me to kind of dig into the history of that. But it was in 2016 when those cities established their goals. And then they actually had a little bit less aggressive goals. Aggressive, maybe not the right word, but less ambitious goals. And so as part of that, they were looking at 2032. But once they sat down and kind of worked through the legislation, worked with Rocky Mountain Power, the determination was made to move to that 2030 mark. And so at least with those few communities that kind of drove this, that's what brought them there. But with talking with some of the other communities, I think there was just interest in, looking towards sustainability, looking at options to see what could be accomplished with this. And I don't know how, adamant or how tied some of them are to the goal and to the process, but they at least felt there was need to have interest in it. I did send an email to various communities and didn't get a lot of initial responses back. So I don't know why some of the lack of interest. I'm not sure.
Just to piggyback on that, yes,
So I understand that Park City and Salt Lake were the ones that kind of drove this, and they did already have goals in place. So we're a little behind them starting out right now. I guess my question is, the other ones that are on the list that were adopted, were they closer to Salt Lake and Park City's timeline? Are they a little ahead of us, or are they starting from scratch like we are?
So from what I understand, Park City, Salt Lake, Cottonwood Heights, and Summit County all had pre-existing goals before signing on. The other communities are probably about where we're at. And some of them a little bit, just in talking with them last week, a little bit further behind. And some a lot further behind.
I would think the resolution would help us to spur us on to reach a goal that we wanted to achieve. Even though we may not have that goal and we may be behind some of these other communities, but that doesn't mean that we can step up that pace and achieve some of those things.
I concur with that.
Yeah. Bart? What about rental units? Have they talked about that?
No, I'm good.
So with rental units, we don't have any information as of yet how that will be handled. The only information I've received from Rocky Mountain Power is the determination to participate will be with individual customers. And so I don't know exactly how that will work with rental units and how that will work with people transitioning in and out of the community. Those are still questions that would be answered later in the process.
Okay. Bart, did you have a comment you wanted to clarify?
Nope.
Sorry.
Nope.
Okay. On those other communities, to get to the question Councilmember White asked about, the other communities having goals, et cetera, I assume they also have plans for how to get there. I mean, for us tonight, we're thinking HB 411 and this pathway would be our means of getting there if we set this goal tonight. It's a little uncomfortable if this isn't the option, having that goal but not having a plan to reach it either.
So I think it's kind of a muddy question because they have multiple goals that they're trying to accomplish. One of them, and Park Cities has a really ambitious goal to get off of the grid completely as a city, and Salt Lake as well. And so they've been moving forward with sustainability goals for a long time. And so there's kind of two different goals. This is a community-wide goal, obviously. And so I think this is, in their minds, the mechanism they have to get there.
Okay.
So that's this is the mechanism that they help develop to accomplish that through partnership with Rocky Mountain Power and others.
Okay. I asked the question because we have an option to consider to get us there right now, but we're having a lot more information coming if we pass this tonight. But if the time comes that we don't ultimately go in because of the cost burdens, et cetera, some of the concerns that we're looking for answers for still, it would be unfortunate to have that goal and not have a plan to achieve the goal. That's what I'm saying. That's really concerning, but I like having a goal. I think it's kind of with Councilmember Stevens. It's nice that we're finally having these discussions and that we've got a committee with that much expertise and this much community interest in driving us toward that effort. So that's been one of my concerns, is making sure whatever goal we have a plan ultimately.
Well, and that's to that point too, in the resolution, that's that language that we included that, if for some reason we can't get there with this goal, then we'd look at other mechanisms to get to that net 100% renewable. So this isn't a one and done necessarily, and I guess to clarify that too, if you approve the resolution, it is also saying we're right now establishing this goal. If that doesn't work out, we are going to have a goal. We are going to pursue a goal. We're going to work with whoever we can to get to that goal. So it is putting the city on the path, absolutely, of a goal and accomplishing that goal, because why set a goal if you're not going to work for it?
Sorry. Can I ask one other, speaking along with those lines? I believe this is the first time we've worked with Rocky Mountain Power in something along this line, right?
Aside from the other program that we're working on now that's focused on reducing the usage.
But Rocky Mountain Power is willing to look to meet with us, to sit down
Yes,
with us as a city, and
they've
and go over
indicated a
other-
willingness, and they even in discussions with them indicated that if perhaps, I mean, I'm just throwing things out here, but the city were to set a 2035 goal, they'd be willing to go with us back to the state to look at getting legislation to allow us a mechanism to accomplish that goal in a similar way. Because of the really strict timeline on HB 411, I mean, you've really got to make a determination this evening whether or not you'd like to go on that path.
I just wanted to add, I know that many of us have had a lot of concerns over the impact to residents, especially folks that are more low income or maybe not going to get the same communication mechanisms to understand how to opt out, et cetera. And I think that going through this process, we can find out more about that, because I think that also there's potential for folks in those situations to have even more impacts if we don't do anything, right? So energy costs will go up, and the other program we're working on with the governor's office, et cetera, is looking at how we can help weatherize their homes without any cost to them, even if they are renters, find these other ways to also make sure that we're supporting folks like that, even if this doesn't happen on this other side too. So I think that, to me, those two things go together very well. And then that's something that I'll be looking really closely at too, is just really thinking about that. And I think we all have to think about that, because if certain people opt out, whether it's because you opt out by filling out the form or you're getting your own sustainable energy, that will have impacts on everybody else that's still on the grid, right? So I just think it's very fascinating.
It's important for us to find resources which we can have other energy resources to us. As I compared this, a lot of times we look at programs or studies that come before us, and we put out a inquiry and to get back applicants that will provide that study. The only difference between that and this one is that at that time we know exactly about what it's going to cost us, and we'll get the information back in. We don't have the cost factor here, but we do have an opportunity of receiving additional information where we can make a decision down the road, and so that's the only difference between what we've done before and what this one is, as I see it.
So, and Vice Chair Chaburka, I just want to, we also don't know that it's going to raise the cost.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah,
And so we're speculating that that's what's going to happen, and it may actually have a better impact for all of us. And I also want to say that, we're also making speculation that people that have lower incomes don't have the want to have clean air, and, they have lungs as well. So, we just have to be careful on how we address that group of.
Of course, and I didn't mean to suggest that they didn't care about air quality or the environment in any way. Just sometimes things are cost prohibitive, whether you want to do it or not. It's like buying organic vegetables. Everybody would like to be able to do that, but not everybody can do that.
But we don't know the cost to it, so I guess that's what I'm getting at.
But it gives us a goal where we could reach in 2030 of what type of energy is our city going to look like at that particular time.
Air pollutants.
Some of us won't be here, but
So who cares?
but we're looking to the future. I'd rather have a goal out there that I can achieve and work toward than nothing at all. And that doesn't sound reasonable to me.
Yeah, we've got Councilmember Heyer breathing heavily into the mic. Awkward. Richie there?
Maybe he took his last breath.
Richie there, bud? We can hear you breathing.
That's a good thing.
Okay.
There's something.
I think it's a loud highway somewhere behind him. No. Okay, we'll wait for him to chime in if we hear from him. In the meantime, I don't expect very much public comment on this item.
Not at all.
No, thanks for the presentation, Amy, and
You're
the
welcome.
conversation.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, before we take public comment, we do normally open up public comment. We find out how many people we have. We give everybody 3 minutes. we've heard probably from every one of you already via email or phone call or a neighborhood conversation. But can you guys just, by show of hands, let me know, show me if you care to address the council on this item? If you care to address the council on this item? Okay, quite a few, as expected. So all I would ask is if maybe there's a chance I could tuck my kids in tonight before they go to bed, but we're all public servants, so we're here for the night no matter what you guys need. But if you're starting to hear a theme that you agree with or aligns with your comment and your feedback, feel free to just piggyback on them and say, I agree with that. Or if you guys if you know each other well and you want to combine your comments into one, we can make this a lot more smooth. But I'm not trying to discourage anybody from sharing what you want to share. I'm just trying to encourage efficiency if you can, okay? So if you guys will stick with that guideline, we'll stick with the 3 minutes each. If we are going forever, we might have to go to 2 minutes each because we still have another meeting after this one.
Which y'all could stay for if you want.
Yeah, you can stay for it, but it's closed session. It's going to be boring for you. Brandon, any update on the Rich? Okay.
Hey, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Okay. Copy.
I've been listening the whole time. I just haven't been able to talk back.
Okay. Only breathing. The breathing is making it through. So, okay. Now is your opportunity to address the council on this item. Appreciate your guys' patience with the process. Okay. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name for the record.
I'm going to try and be even more brief. I'll try and get to. My name is Alan Jones. I'm a resident of Ogden. I agree with Mr. Stevens wholeheartedly that we need a goal to try and achieve. It is, I think, ridiculous that we don't have a goal. It's always better to start late than never. And I urge us to wholeheartedly embrace this and not only have the goal, but see if we can do collectively everything we can to, in fact, achieve that goal. And with just a quick aside, I think we should have topics like this more often to fill the seats in the city council meeting. I think it's kind of fun to have such a well-attended meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can always talk about goats next time if you want.
Yeah.
Hey, Chair Nadolski?
Yeah.
I know I see a lot of signs in the chamber, and I don't want to be the sign police, but part of the problem is that it's broadcast throughout, on the internet, and we don't pan, and so we don't know if there's 0% clean energy air signs. So I would like to maybe say that we shouldn't probably hold signs up behind people.
Yeah, we've had signs in the past. We've asked that they don't obstruct anybody else's view. Just be respectful with them. We don't have a rule or anything that that does not allow them.
It's just kind of unfair to the people that are on the internet.
Right. So we just ask for you to be mindful of that, if you would, please.
Mr. Chair, we ought to encourage those who have a different opinion to voice their opinion too, because we need to hear both sides of the issue at the present time to gather that information. And so, if you have a different opinion, fine. Let's hear what you have to say.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
With all due respect to my colleague, I'd love to just get clarification on these because I'm not sure I understand what the problem is.
The rest of the world can't see everybody's signs, so there could be somebody sitting over there. And
we know the world's eyes are on us, but
so are we just requiring people to put down their signs?
That's what I would request.
But it's not
but the chair
in our
has
norms.
decided not to, so that's fine.
So pull up your signs.
Let's make this even harder. Rich, you still breathing with us there?
Can you see the signs, Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still breathing. I see a couple of signs, but I don't see. You can only see the ones that are right in that middle camera.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep moving. We got I think a lot of anticipation. And if you do have a contrary opinion, we absolutely want to hear it. Thanks.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have a contrary opinion at this point, so I think I'll be with the majority. Hello, my name is Trevor Jones. My address is 1364 Harrop Street. I thought I wasn't going to make it tonight. I did. I urge you, city council members, to adopt the resolution opting Ogden into HB 411. One point of clarification I wanted to make, according to the understanding of myself and others with me, there are currently 12 cities and counties, not 8, who are currently opted into this. That includes Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, Summit County, Mill Creek, Holiday, Kearns, Camas, Francis, Oakley, Park City, Moab, Cottonwood Heights. In addition to those 12, West Valley, City, and Riverton are voting tonight. Additionally, no other available program provides clean energy production besides this one. There's a lot of interest and concern for 100% renewable energy. I mean, you can see everyone, you look around. Something like 70 to 80% of the public, last I heard, believes in the reality of climate change and considers it a concern. The costs with that, to Councilwoman White's point earlier this evening, we are assuming that this renewable energy will increase rates. However, Salt Lake City and Park City, who are a little bit further along and have already worked on some of these studies, are showing that it is actually coming out to be really close to the same price. And at that point, it seems to me kind of like a no-brainer. The wholesale cost of power, I mean, obviously it depends on your subsidies and where you're getting your solar from and the rates and everything. But the cost of solar and wind power has only been going down in the last 5 to 10 years. It's been dramatic. Last I heard, it was about 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour to run an existing coal plant, and that is going up slightly, while it is about 3.6 cents for solar or wind, and that is continuing to drop year over year dramatically. Those are wholesale numbers. We probably won't get that for our individual ratepayers. What's really at question now is really for Rocky Mountain, who's going to be stuck with the bill for all the sunk costs in all these big coal plants that are sitting there. Other states are opting out of it as quick as they can, out of coal plants, opting into clean renewable energy. And I just want to take this opportunity to formally request that we do the same and that we are not left with these older, more expensive, polluting coal plants. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Trevor. I think I heard a couple of cities in there that were Summit County cities. Maybe they're latched into the county.
Yeah, let me hurry and interject on that. And I appreciate the additional information. So, the information we got, we tried our best to get a summary of the cities, given that there's more than 200 cities in the state. Unfortunately, I got the ones that responded to me and a list from the League of Cities and Towns, and there's movement happening with some of the cities, as you're probably aware. So sorry that's not perfectly comprehensive, but...
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. We try to address a few of the questions along the way if we can.
Hi, David Timmerman again. I think you already know where I stand on this, so I'll try to keep it to a minute. First of all, of course, there was recently a meeting at Weber State called the 24 Hours of Reality regarding carbon dioxide and the temperature of the earth. And currently there's over 110 million tons that are of carbon dioxide, which is injected into the atmosphere every single day in every 24-hour period. At the last meeting where I spoke, we had several young people, high school age students, who stood up. And the reason they stood up is because they know more about this issue than we do. There's not a coincidental date of 2030. That is the projected date that this planet will reach the tipping point and will be beyond repair by then, because the temperatures of the water and the surface of the earth will be so high that it will have tremendous, even worse problems for those of us that live here. Air, water, increasing fires, problems with allergies. The air is filthy. The water is evaporating. It's going to be a massive worldwide crisis. And so I would just reach out to you and let you know we've been working on this for quite a while, long before House Bill came along. House Bill 411 actually passed last year. And it's because we have the same passion as the kids that spoke. We realize this is a huge crisis and we all need to act. So I would ask you to please adopt this resolution for my children, my grandchildren, and all future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi. My name is Jonathan Melton. I live on 7th Street. So one of the potential cons that Amy provided is that this may not be within the role of government, but I would tend to disagree. So my day job is I'm a research and development engineer who works on technology projects that usually benefit the U.S. military. So the government's been an excellent sponsor of technology for at least 100 years, and if you look at other governments, a lot farther than that. I'm personally not a huge fan of some parts of this bill, but I think that, as you guys said, we need a goal, and this really pushes us in a really good direction. This type of technology development is really important and currently lacking sponsorship at the federal level, but that's what's really cool about local government, right? Is if it's important to us, and personally decreasing carbon emissions is important to me, then this is something that we can say personally here in Ogden that we care about. I'm a fan of optimism, and I think this bill can make Ogden better than it is now. So, thanks.
Thanks for reminding us of optimism. How we doing, Malik?
Good evening, everyone. Malik Dio, 26th and Jackson. We need to go ahead and support this HB 411. It's going to definitely help this city's future of our children. And I think it's Ogden needs to lead the way in this and not be the ones who are behind. Also, on a separate note, the Standard Examiner published an article yesterday saying that Chief Johnson said that the Salt Lake City police department, that the Salt Lake City once had a citizens review board, but it was quickly discontinued. That is incorrect. They currently do have a citizens review board. So did the Standard Examiner misquote you, or are you misinformed?
Thank you, Malik.
Chair, we ought to remind them that this is for the House Bill 411.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. I think that sailed, but thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to refute something you just said. You implied that the world was not watching. I would dispute that. 20 years ago, we came to Ogden Valley to ski. We looked at this place and we looked at Ogden and we thought, town's not much, but Ogden Valley's great. We bought land here on the third day we were here. We hadn't even considered it. We did it as a whim. I'm proud now to stand here and say, you guys are on the map. Ogden is on the map. It's on the map nationally. It's on the map internationally as a ski town, as a great place to live. And it's because of the work that you, Mayor, and you council members have done. And I hope you will continue with this resolution because it shows that you plan to be here in 2030, that you plan to have a ski industry in 2040. And that's why people see Ogden internationally. So I urge you to take this resolution and to push forward with it, with the plans, with the costs, with everything, in order to make sure that we can continue to be one of the best places to live in the United States, which is the best country in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, can you say your name for the record for me?
My name's Miranda Menzies. I'm originally from Britain, then from Germany, and then from Cincinnati, and now I live proud to live here in Utah.
I just wanted to say I should misspeak more often, which actually happens really often, especially if it leads to comments like that. Thanks for that. Hi.
Hi, Carrie France. I live in the 3rd District, and I've been here before. But I wanted to thank all of you for considering this and for the thought that you've given this. That's been very clear in your comments and questions today. And I had a lot I wanted to say, but Miranda pretty much just said it more eloquently than I could. But I moved here as well for the skiing. And I wanted to bring the threat a little bit closer to home. Utah's warming at twice the global rate. So climate change is serious and more serious for us than it is for other people. We've warmed already 3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1970, and the projections suggest that our summers might increase as much as 8 degrees Fahrenheit if we don't act, and that's by 2050. That also means warmer and rainier winters. So I lived in Seattle for 8 years, and I didn't move here for the rain. I moved here for the snow, and there's bad news for snow if we don't act and act now. It's estimated that we will lose in the state of Utah about 25% of our snowpack by 2050. And that's primarily areas that are below 8,000 feet, which means most of our ski resorts here in the Ogden area. We have to act, and we have to act now. I also think that Ogden is an amazing place to live. I was skeptical, honestly, when I moved here. I thought I was coming for the job and the skiing, but I have fallen in love with the place because of the care, the excitement, the innovation that Ogden demonstrates. And that's largely thanks to you and all the people who live here. And so I hope to see us continue on that track. So thank you.
Thank you. Man,
Our compliments.
we live in an awesome place. There's no doubt about it. And it's every bit as much to do with you guys as us. So, please.
Hi, I'm Heather Root. I live and I work in Ogden. I sit on the Natural Resources and Sustainability Committee, but today I'm just speaking as myself, an individual. I really support this resolution. I think that 2030 is, it's an ambitious goal, but I think it's doable. It's in line with the science. The latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said that we needed to reduce emissions by 45% by 2030 to curb the worst effects of climate change. So there's a reason behind that number, which is cool. It's also the year my son is going to graduate from high school, if all goes well. So it's not in the distant future, it's on the time horizon for me. I do think that there are a lot of unknowns, but that we have the ability to opt out and to think creatively about how to solve them as they arise. I think we have possibilities to offset any potential increased costs with savings and efficiency, with programs that help people opt out. We have the option to opt out as a city and come up with another plan. So this sets us towards a goal, but leaves us a lot of flexibility. And I don't think we need to be afraid of locking ourselves in. It can unleash quite a lot of creativity. So thank you so much for your time and for asking all these good questions that were some of the same ones that I've asked as we've gone through. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Hi. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm here on Tuesday, baby. What's there to complain about? I like it.
My name is Jordan Weininger. I moved here 2 years ago for a job. Ogden is growing, and I'd like to agree with my colleagues, it is on the map. I moved here a couple of years ago for a job in tech. Ogden is excellent at creating jobs and brought my fiance here, and we have no intention on leaving anytime soon because we found a community of like-minded people that we love the outdoor community. We love that the city council listens to its citizens, which is rarer than you might think. I'm from Chicago, so they don't care. But I just wanted to point out that Ogden is growing and it is on the map, and it is important that at this time we grow in the right direction and grow in the direction that will make people want to keep moving here and, keep the economy going the way that it is, because, creating jobs only lasts so long if the inversion gets as bad as it's getting. It's somewhere I want to live for, my whole career and, want to be an active citizen and participating in things like this, but it needs to grow in the right direction. I think that's essential. It's all about the trajectory, right? In which way we're growing. If we're growing in population and economy and it becomes, the air quality becomes as bad as it's looking like it's getting in Salt Lake, the population of Salt Lake, I believe, is supposed to double by 2050, is a figure I heard. The state population is supposed to double by 2050. Thank you for correcting me. And it's something we really have to get ahead of, I think. So that's the point I wanted to make.
Thanks for asking how I was doing too, by the way.
I hope I'm your alderman for a long time. Go ahead. Sorry.
Get up here. Edwin Stafford, up from Layton. I will be addressing later. On this topic, there's a lot of unpopularity that's going to go with what I'm saying. The first unpopularity is that it does not matter if you adopt House Bill 411 if we pull out of the Paris Agreement. It does not matter. China and India are the two biggest, and us are the three biggest polluters on the planet. It does not matter. It also does not matter if you adopt House Bill 411 if people can opt out. Back home in Wyoming, when we have our water restrictions, they are mandatory. The first time you violate those water restrictions, hey, no problem. You didn't reconfigure the sprinklers, no problem. We'll give you a warning. Second time it happens, it's a $500 fee. Third time it happens, it's an $800 fee. That's not even the punchline. I've heard of people getting metered. Because we recognize and realize that this water has to last us until the next melt at least. Farmington ran out of water last year because people opted out. And the third unpleasantness, if you want to go clean energy, and this is going to be really unpopular in the wake of the Chernobyl series, put in some nuclear reactors. We do not build RBMK reactors. Our reactors cannot do what Chernobyl did. The water in our reactors is used as a moderator. If you lose coolant, it shuts down completely and safely. And I will be back in a second.
Chair Nadolski,
Yep.
sorry, do you mind if I chime in? So the state law requires an opt-out option in HB 411, just for clarification.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hi.
Hello, my name's Joanne Lawrence. I'm a citizen of Ogden and not here to talk to you about Marshall White Center tonight. Had to get it in. It does matter. It all matters. And it all matters at this local level because we're the ones that are going to raise the spirit of the discussion. We're the ones that are going to be evident to the communities around us. Ogden's leadership of the mayor, of the city council, is what the citizens of Ogden want to aspire to. And it does matter. It does matter even if we go down fighting. It always matters. And we've got to start it here.
Hi, my name is Jenny Nagy. I live in Ogden across the street from Wasatch Elementary, and I'm not here to talk to you about housing. I'm here to represent my family. Not everybody in my family could make it tonight, but I was delegated to come here and say we support HB 411. I think we don't know exactly how it's going to turn out at this point, but I firmly agree with Chair Nadolski that the benefit of making the small investment to get a lot of information today so that we can see the next steps of this is definitely worth it. And so I think it's worth taking that first step.
Thank you, neighbor. I didn't realize we lived so close.
How are you?
Thanks for having us here today. My name is Bonnie Christie Anson, and I also serve on the Ogden's Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee, but I'm just here speaking for myself. I love living in Ogden. I've been living here for about 2 years, working here for 4 years, and it's great to be here. And I just wanted to make a little bit of a clarification. One of the things that Rocky Mountain Power said that they would do to work with you for maybe a different goal, I think that's awesome that they would help you if you decided to do a different goal. But if you decided to do a different goal, you would have to get the state legislature to agree with your goal if it was different than the 2030. As Amy had pointed out, Salt Lake City and Moab and Park City, I believe, started in 2016 to try to help move that forward. And it took them until 2018 to get that forward. So I don't know if the entire legislature would be moving forward on a different goal. So you may want to just consider that if you're making a goal. I think 2030 is an awesome goal. So if you're looking at doing that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. We do prefer to follow the law, so
That's right.
we keep some pretty talented attorneys on staff. They're really helpful.
Hello, I'm
so
Amelia
thank you.
Jones. I live in Ogden, and I am encouraging you to adopt this resolution. I think it's many people have made the right comments that it's important to have a goal, and that it's a really important topic for us to work on. And I think Ogden should not just be waiting to see who else is taken on that goal, and then we jump on. Let's be leaders. I think Ogden's better than that.
Thank you. Hey, welcome back.
Hi, my name is Rachel Love. I'm the student body president at Da Vinci Academy, and I'm a senior in high school. And I'm here to support HB 411. It's actions like these that the community needs to see. We need to see Ogden making progress towards a sustainable, livable future. As a community who demands for effective action to mitigate our contributions to climate change, these are the types of actions that will make an impact. This is the way Ogden can push to protect our future and our homes. By taking action on these sources of energy in Ogden, we become leaders in sustainability and progress while also work towards the preservation of our futures and land. This is the right step towards protecting our futures. And I ask that as you vote on this issue, you keep in mind the youth support and the community support.
Thanks. Rachel, are you one of the students from the academy that came a year or two ago to talk about anti-idling?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Thank you. Hi.
Hello, Alice Mulder. I live in Ogden on Custer Avenue. I'm also very involved in sustainability at Weber State, but I'm here as myself. I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to consider this so thoroughly, for the Sustainability Committee in Ogden and their work here. And I want to echo or concur with what has been said, and particularly that it does matter. It matters very much at the local level, despite the national stance at the moment with the Paris Accords. There are lots of states, cities, counties, local governments that are still in, right? There's a whole movement of being still in and committed. We've also just concluded a climate series at Weber State, and one of the things that was echoed in that capstone again today was this decade is the most important one for us to start acting in terms of trying to stay within safe limits, not just for us and our fantastic community here, but globally. And so making a decision to support this here and now and starting some goal and movement toward that, I think is really important. I'm here with my kids and my rest of my family, and as my daughter said, I think that's a really good idea, Mommy. 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish my kids would say that to me. Anybody else? Hello.
Hi. I'm also not going to talk about housing for once. Angel Castillo. Right now, through the Purple Air Monitor program, there are 4 of them in Ogden, which is kind of sad. But right now, at this moment, our air quality is 155, which is unhealthy. And unhealthy means everyone may begin to experience health effects. Members of sensitive groups may experience more serious health effects. And I'm going to piggyback on some of the data that people that know more than I do about particular area that, where warming is a climate. We have an inversion layer problem. It's only getting worse. We have a population that's expanding. And I wholeheartedly agree with Chair Nadolski. We need a plan. And we need a goal, because nothing is going to happen unless we have this goal. And while I totally and completely respect your hesitation about signing something where we don't have a hard number of what the study is going to cost, we don't have a hard number of what the actual energy units are going to cost, I fully believe that we need to spend a little to take that first step, get beyond this additional hurdle. I'm sure legal has language in it that we can opt out if the price per energy unit is too expensive. But I also want to have you listen to the other side of that, okay? Rocky Mountain Power is not in the business of philanthropy. They are beholden to their shareholders to make money. There is a market need and a drive for clean power. And as you look, as the technology is evolving, it's getting cheaper. And as many people have pointed out, oil and coal and natural gas over the long haul are more expensive. So while it might be not, Rocky Mountain Power PR people might spin it that, yeah, we're great, we're going to new energy. But the long and the short of it, this is about cash. This is about them making money. And we don't want to miss this. It took you almost a year to get a sustainability committee, and you wanted that, right? And it took you forever to get that forward. It took you almost a year to get here, where we are right now talking about this. If you miss this opportunity, it's highly unlikely, based on the history, that you're going to get your own power grid and figure it out with Rocky Mountain Power. And if you did work with Rocky Mountain Power to get a better solution, as it was pointed out, you're going to have to go through a whole bunch of state hoops. And I don't have a whole lot of confidence in clearing those state hoops. Do you remember the whole Medicare Utah waivers? How'd that go, right? So this take what's here right now. You can opt out after we get that study and get an idea of what it's going to cost. Spend a little to get a lot more information and make a decision. But if you miss this, we're doomed. We are doomed towards not ever meeting that goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Here I was thinking a year was fast. I guess it wasn't. How are we doing? Who's left? We got one couple behind the post.
There's some people behind the post.
Oh, great.
They're convening.
Oh, tag team.
I like it.
We want 9 minutes.
If you'll all say your name and use your 3 minutes, however you collectively wish. Thanks.
Hi, so we're students at Weber State University. My name is Elizabeth Fallner.
I'm Isabella Alvarado. And I'm Amanda Jones. We're all social work majors. And right now, currently, we're learning when to make change, and we're also learning how to take action when making change. So this is our call to action. It's unrelated to everything that's on the agenda right now, but this is our own way of informing people of an issue that we see as important. So, we are here to talk about Position Statement 55, confining sexual predators in the mental health system.
Time out. If you're not talking to the item of HB 411, we definitely want to hear you.
Okay.
But we're going to have another public comment after this.
Oh,
For
okay.
all other comment.
Okay, I thought this was the
Okay,
public comment.
that's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, it's
So-
confusing.
No, it's fine.
But if you want to comment on 411, please go ahead.
Okay, no. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll bring you back, and then you just bought yourself an extra minute, I think, or so. Okie dokie. Yeah. Loophole. No. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh. Love getting to follow that one.
Right.
I'm Stephen St. Peter. I'm also on your sustainability committee, but I'm not here on part of that. You already have my vote from that committee on pushing forward. So I am here on behalf of myself as a citizen and a taxpayer. And I'm not a longtime resident of Ogden, but I am a long enough resident to have received a nice tax hike the year after I moved here. I think it went up $1,400 a year. So as a taxpayer, I wish some of my money would go into going ahead with House Bill 411. Aside from my tax money, I also put a lot of my own time into the community. I facilitate a 10-step group that it works on climate change resiliency, because people do come to my group. They feel grief. They feel despair. They feel a lot of uncertainty. We feel a lot of uncertainty as a group, as all our district committee members here, right? We don't know what this is going to look exactly like as we go forward for it. But on behalf of the people that I work with in my workshops, I would like to go forward to them with a message that we are taking their future into consideration. We are dealing with some of their grief, some of their uncertainty, some of their despair. A lot of them don't have the courage or willingness to get up and voice out for themselves. They come to little groups like this. Like mine. And I want to be a voice for them, at least. So I would also, from just representing myself, represent some of these people who do feel voiceless, and that's why they feel some of the despair, grief, uncertainty. The first 3 steps of this program are, and they might sound familiar from other programs, but are accept the severity of the predicament that we are in. The second step is to understand that we are all part of the problem, but we are also part of the solution. And this solution is what we're coming to if we go ahead and adopt House Bill 411, just to take a look. And the third step is practice being with uncertainty. We might not know what all the numbers look like, but we have to be comfortable with that. We have to give these people a little more hope to combat and look to the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. As for your taxes, you're welcome.
No, you're welcome. I don't have kids either.
My name is Ed Mackner, and I just wanted to voice my opinion. I think if I'm sick and I'm running a fever, I go to the doctor, and he takes the temperature. In the same way, the earth is running a temperature. And we're looking for doctors to remediate it. And we know, for example, with satellite technology, we have these tools that tell us the temperature. And they circle the earth all the time. So they give us a database. So we can now find out so following the data is so important, because that's all we have. And the fact is that we are at war with ourselves. And that's very difficult because we don't see the enemy because it's so close, and we are at the enemy. So I would just encourage you to think about the goal of reducing the temperature. And what we reduce here will reduce all of the temperature around the atmosphere, because we're all connected to everything else. We're not separate. Ogden is part of the world. So thank you very much, and I hope we make it.
Thanks, Ed. You made me nervous when you pulled that out of your pocket. So it's for future reference. I know, but let's try and consider that next time. Sorry.
I've got mine in plain view.
Thank you. Doctor.
I imagine the police officer was a little nervous too.
Members of the council and mayor, Joe Linford. I also sit on the Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee, and I'm here tonight on my own, representing myself as a resident of Ogden. I've lived in Ogden almost all my life, except for a period of active duty in the U.S. Air Force. As a long-term resident of Ogden, I just want to say I love this community. It's home. And because it's home, it means a lot to me, what we do and how we take care of our community and the citizens that make it up. We've heard a bit about how, well, the federal government has withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accords and all those sort of things. We know there's a lot of inertia on the federal level. I think that goes without saying. We can see that. And because of that, right now, it's the cities, the communities, and the states where it matters. This is where it matters. There's been talk of a lot of uncertainty. My friends, you're all leaders. As leaders, isn't it our job to step forward into uncertainty? Isn't that our job, to lead forward when we have an opportunity, to take that opportunity, to move forward with it? And as we do that, then we're leading. This is an opportunity for Ogden City to lead. Whichever way it goes, if this resolution is adopted tonight, even if we opt out later on, at least we're saying by this resolution, we are willing to lead out and to address this very important, critical issue that faces our community as well as our nation. We're willing to lead. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you very much for listening to all the public comments.
Easy. Thank you for your comments and for serving our nation and as chair of our committee as well. Right? Thank you.
How's it going? Andrew Wicker. I live in the 4th District. So I'm also concerned about this issue. Obviously, I've been up here and spoke before. I was just going to say I'm actually looking for a second house right now for a long-term rental. And I have to literally consider whether or not I want to own a house here in like a 30-year time span. So just want to keep that in mind for like a investment sort of standpoint. So
thank you. Thank you. Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, we did pretty good. Thank you, everybody. I didn't mean to make light of the item coming out of Ed's pocket. I really meant that as an item of procedure. We do want to make sure there's folks here that's a very sensitive topic, but our safety is as well. So I didn't try to take a light. I just wanted to make sure we are mindful in the future. Okay, we've finished public comment. Thanks everybody for the thoughtful interaction, for continuing the thoughtful interaction. We've been hearing from a ton of people on this issue, and it's always, in my experience, been really thoughtful and engaging. And appreciate you guys coming here tonight. For the council members, after public comment, is there any other questions or comments from council?
I do have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Chair, I was just really quiet earlier when the discussion was going on, and although we're about to vote, I think I owe it to all the citizens that are here to just make a quick statement on how I feel about these. And I think part of the reason why I think I've been quiet is because I think most people that know me know where I am on this issue, because I've kind of been vocal about it. That's why I haven't really felt the need, but I'm inspired, as many of you are inspired today to come to speak. And I just wanted to say that, I just wanted to say that I understand that we have to be great stewards of our financial resources. But as has been said here by many people, I wonder, it's almost very hard for me to put a cost of not taking this step. I think that, to me, that's what's expensive. To me, that's what's harmful and devastating. To think about what is the cost of that, right? And where I come from on this issue is for right now at this point, because we don't know, where there are a lot of unknowns. For me, this is a philosophical stance that I'm making, and I think about my personal feelings about this. I think about the community. I think about the environment. I think about all the stuff that have been said here today. But something that sticks in my mind and my head a lot when I'm thinking about this is I think about two people in particular. My son, he's 12, and when I take him to school, he's almost cursing at trucks that are blowing a lot of smoke, right? And he tells me, and he asks me questions about and he asked me about the snow, right? And he's very worried about it. And so is my niece, and she is 9 years old. And she wanted to come and speak here to us. And I was supposed to help her write her speech, and I failed. So that's why I'm speaking on behalf of her today. So I just wanted to throw that out. And I just also wanted to say to the community that I think it's all of us. I think you give us a lot of credit, and you're very nice to us saying that we're leaders, and we are leaders, but we're all leaders, and we're all a team. And I just get really excited every time people come to the chambers. So thanks for being here.
Thanks. Hope you feel a little less guilt since you said that for not helping your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
My niece.
Oh, your niece. Thanks. Okay. Any other comments from council members or questions before we consider action?
I always have comments.
That's okay.
So I think one of the things that's really difficult when we're up here is that HB 411 isn't the answer to air quality. It's not the end-all be-all answer. There's a lot of steps that we have to do to reach air quality, but it is a step in the right direction. I agree with Councilmember Stevens when we say we need a goal, but it's not just this goal. We need other goals, and we need to be the leaders. And I truly believe that all things are local, and I appreciate that comment earlier, that we can do this. If we have a goal in mind. And so, yeah, this isn't the end all be all. And I don't think if just by passing this resolution and getting solar energy is going to be our end all be all to our air quality issues, because it's not. And we've got a lot of work to do. And we've got a lot of work on transportation issues and how do we move people around and how do we not have to take our kids to school and, have them walk to school and those kind of things. So we've got a lot of work. It's not just this bill. And so I just want you to know that I'm committed to continuing to try to work towards a better goal and a better air quality. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you.
I will just piggyback on that. This has been a hard one for me. I understand and I can sympathize with both sides of the issue. I believe that has been mentioned that we do need to set a goal. I believe that. I believe that HB 411 is in my opinion, a very ambitious goal. And to me, it seems like a giant step, considering we haven't taken even a baby step yet. And I see this as, well, in my opinion, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for speaking, and I truly appreciate everything that you have brought forward. This is something I've wrestled with, something I've reached out to other council members about. To me, it seems like setting a goal with the caveat that we can get out of it at any time doesn't seem like a goal to me. I believe that how can I say this? I believe that Ogden is not Salt Lake, and I'm proud of that Ogden is not Salt Lake. I live here because I do not want to live in Salt Lake. I love this community. I love where I live, and I love the forward thinking and the way that we attack the problems that are important to us. I have a hard time piggybacking onto something that Salt Lake is doing. I have a hard time setting a goal that doesn't allow us to be proactive. To me, it seems that we are being very reactive in this case. We are following someone else's ordinance. We are following someone else's plan. We are choosing to take 2 steps, but the minute it gets too expensive or gets too whatever, we have publicly said we will get out. And to me, that does not seem proactive. I believe that Ogden can be proactive in this. I believe that we can set a path, set a goal, set a timeline, and set those baby steps to reach that goal, a goal that everyone has input on, a goal that we can set that works for us, a timeline that works for us. And because of that, I'm extremely thankful for your compassion, or for your for your passion, for your enthusiasm for this. I agree that we're not doing this for us, and we're not doing this for today. We are doing this for those that follow us. And this is going to be a time when we look back and think we made a decision to do something to benefit those that came after us. And I believe that we can do that. And right now, with the uncertainty, I'm not sold that HB 411 is the best option for us. So while I agree with Councilmember White that we do need a goal, and I agree with all of you that we need a goal, I'm not sure that someone else's goal is our goal. And that's, I have some hang-ups. I've mentioned I have some hang-ups, but I do appreciate the path that we're on. I do appreciate the fact that this is my, Doug can tell you, 10th year on the council, I believe. Doug. And this is the first time we've discussed it. So I do believe I'm thankful to the point for the fact that we are at this point. I'm thankful for the fact that we have the opportunity to address this and move forward and make Ogden better. And so I'm thankful that you all came. I'm thankful for your knowledge in this, and I agree. Whether or not this passes or not, I do not think this is the end all be all, and we do have a long way to go. And so I know myself, I will rely on a lot of you, a lot of your passion and a lot of your knowledge to move us forward so that we can continue to be leaders, not only here in our community, but throughout the state, that we can continue to lead and do what's best for us and be examples.
Thanks, Bart. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure we leave an opportunity to call on Rich too. It's kind of hard to. It's easy to forget he's there when he's not breathing into the mic.
I'll breathe for you. How's that sound?
There you go. I want to give you an opportunity to speak if you want to.
I would. I appreciate it, Chair Nadolski. This is harder when you're not in the room, but if you'll give me a little latitude, I'd sure appreciate the time. I appreciate Bart's comments. I feel very similarly. HB 411 has been tailored for other communities that are not Ogden. They are further down the road. They're in a different spot. Their citizens are different. And HB 411 fits those communities because they were tailored for them. I have done a lot of research because I've spoken to many. I've spoken to many of you that are present today, and I appreciate the input that I've received. The problem that I see is that wind and solar does not give 100% power. It does while the wind is blowing and while the sun is shining, or it can at least. But when those two things are not present, which is some of the time, coal is the source that fills that gap. So because those two things are a fact, coal does not go away until there is another solution that gives 100% 24 hours a day power. Both wind and solar have serious problems as a sustainable solution. And I have done a lot of research. I challenge each of you that have just kind of read the talking points to dig deeper about those two issues of power generation. I have spoken with many people who are opposed to the HB 411 that are afraid to get up and speak because of fear of reprisal. And so I'm speaking for them today. After all of my research that I have put forth, I believe that the only real solution is nuclear, which one of the citizens talked about. It is expensive to embark on up front, but in the end, it becomes really the only non-polluting form of power that I think we can rely on in an ongoing way. Countries that have been switching to nuclear have had good research or good results from that. This is a very political issue, and as someone who really doesn't want to make a political decision, this has been very, very hard for me to strip the politics from this and get to the facts. And I'm not sure I've done it entirely, but I've really striven to do so. There's a lot of real serious questions as to whether government ought to be in the middle of this whole thing. If our citizens want to be involved in this sustainable energy wave, the Rocky Mountain Power provides the Blue Sky program, which is very similar to HB 411, and anybody can join up at any time and participate in that. The difference between HB 411 and Blue Sky is those who find themselves trapped in it because of who otherwise wouldn't join up. And that makes me have some serious concerns with voting for this. I think it is a short-sighted solution. I continue to ask myself why we aren't looking toward nuclear, which is non-polluting, which is a 100% solution to the problems that we find ourselves with. And I think that the money that may be expended over what we are currently paying ought to go towards startups of nuclear. That's kind of where I find myself at this juncture, and so that's my comments. Thank all of you who have come to give us your input and your opinions. And thanks to those who have given us opinions off the record. And I think that's what helps make Ogden a great place to live. And I continue to live here too, and appreciate the citizenry that we have that will give us their input and participate in this process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich. With the exception of that last part you mentioned, I know there's a lot of people in the room, as you're aware, that maybe don't agree with some of your comments, but I just want to say thanks for calling in to make the comments. Rich has got a history of doing research and being really thoughtful, asking a lot of questions, and a couple times there's been some really unpopular decisions that he felt compelled that he had to make in statements, and he's called in from far away, including from the middle of the mountains and the Wind Rivers, to make a tax increase. So appreciate your willingness to call in so that you could say what you felt you needed to say. I think that's something that we should all admire, regardless of our opinions on this. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that comment, and I hope that we can all continue to be respectful of each other's opinions and just continue to work together. We have a lot more in common than we have that separate us. And hopefully we can continue to work for good things for Ogden. I think a goal that has been mentioned by every council member, I also share that same opinion. We are the gardeners of the garden, and we need to make sure that we take good care of those things that we've been blessed with. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich, and that'll always be the case. And same with you, Bart. Appreciate your comments, and I think that's something that sets our council and our administration and our city apart from others, is we don't want to make political decisions. We want to make rational, and we want to make good decisions, and we want to hear from each other. So
can I just ask a quick question? Mm-hmm. And I've asked this before. Does it only limit us to solar and wind? I mean, could we buy nuclear power somewhere?
No, it doesn't limit to those resources necessarily. There are some that are listed in the HB 411, but it's not exclusive to those. It's something that Rocky Mountain Power would explore, the types of energy. So it's not something the city itself would dictate. But HB 411 allows certain types of energy usage, but doesn't...
Geothermal?
Yeah, from my understanding, it doesn't limit Rocky Mountain from using other mechanisms.
Okay.
Can I chime in here about that?
Yeah, please go, Rich.
As I've read the bill, HB 411, I've read it 3 times, trying to be very thoughtful about that. It does specifically talk about wind, solar, and hydro as the avenues to which we are going to explore this. It doesn't indicate anything else. I'm not sure it prohibits it, but as the part of HB 411, it is those 3 sources that it refers to.
Yeah, I believe that's correct, Rich.
And I remember in the meeting when Rocky Mountain Power was there, they said they were not considering building any nuclear. It would take too long, it's too cost intensive.
Correct. Okay, Councilmember Stevens.
Well, I think there's other resources out there, but as I see it, maybe this House Bill 411, by the time we get to 2030, it's going to change. It'll change all along. As we know, all of our bills change and they take amendments to it. So I think it'll be different when we get right down to the actual resolution.
Okay.
It'll change.
If there's any questions that can be answered, we still have to take action on the item. There'll be opportunity to comment afterward as well. If you have some.
I have additional comments whenever it's appropriate, Chair.
It's your comment. It's up to you as to when you want anyone or everyone to hear it.
So just a quick follow-up to some of the things that I've heard very quickly, because I am aware of that we have another meeting. So I agree with you, Chair, that it is, I think we've established a very nice culture to respectfully disagree. And I also really appreciate my colleagues who might be on the other side of a particular issue to voice, and so I thank them for that. But I do want to say two things. One is Bart made a comment about that he's been here about 10 years, and this is the first time that he hears this conversation happening at this level. And to me, that is actually the very reason why it is important that we take action, because we haven't done anything, right? And if we compare what we've done to, for example, what an institution like Weber State has done, it's just no comparison. It's just to me is again the very reason why this action tonight is so important, even if it's symbolically important. And then the other quick comment I have is related to also my friend Rich Heyer's comment about he challenged us to do the research. So I want to challenge our council that because we don't have timelines, that as we move forward with learning more about what this means and what kind of fiscal impact this could have for us, and that if we know and if we truly believe that this is not right for Ogden, because I believe that might be true, then the challenge is, and let's come up with a goal that is right for Ogden before these other steps come to the table, so that we can show the citizens that we are going to do something, because inaction shouldn't be an option, right? So I agree. We don't want to just recklessly go and spend money that we may not have. We don't know those things now. So that's my challenge to you. Let's figure out a way. Let's call special sessions. Let's do more retreats. Let's do whatever we have to do. And let's come up with a plan that works for us if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Great comments. Some of the same comments I have for later as well. Okay. We still have not taken action on the item.
Chair, one question. Amy, are we going to have other work sessions as we move forward?
So tonight's the decision point on the resolution. If the resolution is adopted, or I guess if you choose not to adopt it, there could be supplemental work sessions. If it is adopted, I would absolutely anticipate additional work sessions to discuss some of the price points and the information that is received. Absolutely.
So we're not through talking about this then?
Not necessarily.
I hope not.
Okay. I'll be a little more direct. We need to take action on the item.
If I could, I would like to propose that we adopt Joint Resolution 2019-3.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Chiburka to adopt proposed Joint Resolution 2019-3. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
No.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Blair?
No.
Vice Chair Chaburka,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye. That passes.
You're breaking the rules.
You're breaking the rules. I'm supposed to remind you not to clap, and I
hold up a sign.
He had a note.
Yeah.
He had a note.
But I gotta do it so that the next time you guys want to yell at us, I can tell you, sorry, it's against the rules. You can't yell at us.
May I make a comment?
I would love for you to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the sustainability, well, whatever the long name is. I can't remember it all right now, but the committee that worked so hard on this. I think that, when the committee was put in place, this was like the first thing that came on your plate. So we really appreciate all of the time and consideration that was put into it. And of course, all the input that we've gotten from different folks in the community. And I, too, just really want to put it out there that we are really respectful council, and we want to hear everybody's opinion. Even if we don't agree with one another, we still respect the process and really admire each other for going through that process and doing what we think is right. So I really appreciate it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
A lot of things have been said this evening, but I hope before we vacate and in his comments, I would hope that Councilman Lopez would tell us what happened down at Union Station with the Raptors. I hope that will come to being. But
absolutely. Prepare your comments in the comment section, please.
I think it's refreshing to know that you've come to visit us and give us your information. This is actually the information that we need. I thank you for that. I also understand that you care about Ogden and that you love Ogden because of your comments that you've said. House Bill 411 may not be the total answer, but when I participated in track and field, the individual who was starting the race would call us to the line. Until he would say go, nothing would happen. That's what I see this opportunity here is we're at the line. We need to find out the information. We need to gather in those items that would be important to us. And if the cost is too extreme, then I would not be for it. But if it's going to benefit our residents of Ogden, then that's a good benefit for us. We're actually, what we did here this evening, we took measures to look at what's going to happen into the future. I know Councilman Blair and Councilman Heyer, their no vote is probably reasons that they had really issues with 411. And we all do have issues with it. You have issues with 411. It's not perfect, but at least we can get started and find out what will be best for our city. And that's what I look at there.
Thanks, Doug. Okay. Any more comments? Rich, you good? Okay, I finally get to have a comment other than my wisecracks. I am thankful that we're willing to spend a little to learn a lot. And I want to thank everybody that's been interacting on the issue. I have learned something through this process that doesn't surprise me, but I want to share with you is that when we've established the sustainability committee, I work in natural resource management myself, and environmental issues are top of mind for me. But I did not recognize the amount of interest in that issue in this community. And Councilmember Lopez, before we established it, was telling me, "Carnal, there's a lot of energy behind this on campus. You got to be listening to this. This matters a lot to a lot of people." And so, regardless of the direction that 411 goes at the end of this whole stepwise process, that is a big take-home point for me. And I just want to express that I have a lot of concerns about our local air quality too. And I don't see 411 being a local solution entirely to it. We've kind of, a lot of us have talked about that tonight. but I really want to see our air improved. I've got a niece I grew up in Arizona. I have a niece that has respiratory problems, and my brother, her father, said, what would it, he kind of toyed with the notion of living in Utah, in Ogden, and I thought, brother, I really can't recommend that with what your daughter's going through. And that kind of thing matters to a lot of people. There's a lot of people making that kind of a decision, and we ought to take it really seriously. The comments that resonate with me the most tonight amongst my peers here was what Councilmember Lopez said. We're considering 411 right now because 411 is the option that's before us right now. And there isn't another option before us. And that's not a knock on those that have come before us. It's just a statement of fact that we don't have a plan. We are absolutely at the beginning stages of sustainability in this community. And that beginning stage needs to make sure it's a permanent stage. It's something that is just part of what we do here. And I really do hope that we can get to a point where we can reach these kind of goals. But if it's not 411, and quite frankly, I share some of the concerns that have been expressed by Councilmember Blair and Higher, not all of them, but I worry about the costs. I worry about a lot of these unknown things, but I'm willing to spend a little to find out, because then we can make informed decisions. And a lot of the people that I've talked to in the community who are avidly in support of this, I don't think you're in support of it at the cost of other people's financial well-being and to take food off of their table in order to do this. I think everybody in this room has a heart for that as well, and a lot of compassion. So if it's not 411, what is it? This is something that we ought to all be putting our minds together and committing to do for the long term, whether it's this avenue or another. And we've heard that we've got a lot of other tools at our disposal, and we're going to be able to revisit all of it when we know a lot more. So I'd hope that we would all keep all of that in mind, that as we're making these decisions, there's just so many people to consider and pressures that everybody's facing that a lot of us in this room are not facing. But we all have lungs. We all breathe. So thank you for the work that the Sustainability Committee has done. I'm sorry as the chair for maybe kind of a rocky handoff. Tell us what you think on such a meaty issue right out of the gate. But I think we're kind of learned some lessons on some procedural lessons. But we are talking internally about maybe asking you guys for some real advice on air quality locally too. So thank you for your engagement, and we look forward to more. Okay. Thanks for coming, everybody. We still have public comment, buddy. I know.
What about those young ladies? Should they go first?
Let's bring up the ones that started, if you would, if you're okay, and give them a chance to. Thanks, you guys.
They only have 2 minutes. No, I'm just
Everybody's leaving. They should probably stay to hear what they have to say. Be polite. If we go for another 10 minutes, I'm going to need a potty break.
Come on back.
I know, I was about to leave. When Louise started talking, I thought, I got 10 minutes. But I didn't dare go.
Oh, no. Okay, are you ready?
All right, welcome back. Let's start with your introductions of your name again for the record, and then pick up where you left off.
Okay, so like we said, we're social work majors from Weber State University. My name's Elizabeth Foundler.
I'm Isabella Alvarado. And I'm Amanda Jones. So pretty much like what I said, this is a position statement that we wanted to just kind of address and let other people know about. And this is kind of like our own call to action. It's something that's required of us, of this class that we are taking in our social welfare and policy class. So we're here to talk about position statement 55, confining sexual predators in the mental health system. At least 20 states in the federal government have passed various versions of sexual predator laws. These laws allow indefinite involuntary commitment of people who have committed serious sex offenses to mental health treatment facilities after their prison sentences. We do not support these laws because mental health facilities are for treatment rather than punishment. Position Statement 55 increases the stigma of mental health facilities, and it provides a higher risk of harm to others in mental health facilities. We believe to prevent this from happening in Utah, we should have better treatment of sex offenders in prison rather than after their time served. There should be earlier interventions and more research and studies conducted to ensure that those who are convicted are getting as close to accurate treatment as possible. Coming to you with all this matter is a small step toward making a bigger difference in this position statement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying.
Yeah, thanks for hanging around.
Yeah. You did not know what you're getting yourself into.
I know. Welcome back.
Hello, my name is Alan Jones. I'm a resident of Ogden. My bone of contention kind of piggybacks a little bit on our topic of discussion all night, which is, again, is partly air quality. One direct thing that we can do to directly affect our air quality is to see if we can reduce the number of cars on the road. Number one, that's going to reduce the traffic issues. It's going to reduce a lot of just general angst in the community. And one of the main ways to do that is to promote walkability. Let's see if we can get I know we have a budget for addressing sidewalks and trees and that sort of things. I live up just above Harrison on 25th. I'm on a walking corridor for both Ogden High School and Polk Elementary School. Our sidewalks are atrocious. They've all been marked to see if they can do something about them. Nothing has happened. They came down and they cut down a couple trees in front of my house over a year ago that were causing some sidewalk issues. However, stumps have not been addressed. I've got dead trees out in front of my house, which are dropping limbs on the sidewalk. One of these days they're going to hit a kid. I just really suggest that we see if we can find some more money to put into the walkability, quality of our sidewalks, and see if we can figure out a way to actually get the pedestrian accesses from the sidewalk to the streets. If you go out there, I guarantee right now, very few places actually have a path that goes from the sidewalk to the street because people aren't shoveling them. So it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, I understand, and I understand money is short, but walkability, getting people out and walking is good for them, is good for us. You get a chance to meet your neighbors, and enjoy a little bit of what is nice about Ogden.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Edwin Stafford, once again, I'm from Layton. The last time that I was up here, we were discussing the housing, and I'm once again here to discuss housing because I have spent the interim period overseeing the end of my time in the Ogden area. In October, I received notification from Davis Housing Authority that I was priced out of my apartment. Half of my disability check will go to that apartment. Can't afford it. GG. An admittedly very cursory study, and a further one while I was sitting in the back, says that there are between 4 and 6 apartment complexes in Ogden that I can apply to. That will buy me approximately 3 years of further time in Ogden. Well, get a job. I lose dollar for dollar per program of income. So yeah, go ahead, get a $15 job. Ultimately, I'm making $4 an hour to be screamed at. And the housing is the tip of the iceberg, and most of the rest of the iceberg is underwater. I brought it up last time. The homeless bring drugs. The homeless bring all of these things. If you were homeless yesterday, and you're homeless today, and you're planning on being homeless tomorrow, would you really want to be here for that? It's a maladaptive coping mechanism. It inhibits survival, but would you really want to be here? Rough estimation, Northern Utah is about 50 years behind where it needs to be for the influx of the population that we're going to have. And as Mr. Stalin was ever so kind to point out to us, one death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths is a statistic. And I would rather be a tragedy than a statistic.
Sorry. My name is Jenny Nagy. I live across the street from Wasatch Elementary in the Mount Ogden planning community, and I can't resist an opportunity to talk about housing. I want to speak in support of ADUs. I am concerned about the language in the draft Southeast Ogden planning community plan that proposes some restrictions on ADUs in that neighborhood. I recognize that I am not a citizen of or a resident of that neighborhood, nor do I necessarily want to be a resident of that neighborhood, but I do want to push for support of ADUs in my neighborhood where they're currently not allowed when my community plan comes up for revision. And I also think it's worth noting that to the extent that the community plans become part of the central plan, and there are some state requirements for the general plan of the city, including the moderate income housing element, which requires there be a reasonable opportunity for a variety of housing, including moderate income housing, that neighborhoods meet the needs of people desiring to live in the community and not just those already living there. And that neighborhoods allow persons with moderate income to benefit and fully participate in all aspects of neighborhood and community life. That there is reason for input, not just from residents of that area, but from people in the greater Ogden community. I think that if we don't want to become like Houston and be a huge sprawl, and if we don't want to become like San Francisco and have outrageous housing prices, we're going to need to be comfortable living a little bit closer to our neighbors at a little bit higher density. And I think that can benefit a broad range of people in the community. Accessory dwelling units are a great way to increase density while still maintaining a neighborhood feel. The accessory dwelling units require that the owner occupy the property if they rent out the subordinate unit, and that's a great way to minimize irresponsibility on the part of the landlord and the tenant to have them living in such close proximity. So I'm at the end of my time, but there you go.
Thanks again, neighbor.
I'm Amelia Jones, and I just have one more comment, which is I don't think we have a non-idling policy in Idaho, in Ogden, and I'm not advocating for one, but I do think idling is a problem. And I can tell you where I see it being a problem the most because I swim at Ogden High School. Because I'm a swimmer, I care a lot about oxygen because I am sucking in oxygen every time I turn my head. And one of the worst places for idling is in that parking lot at Ogden High. High schoolers, I've learned two things about high schoolers. They don't want to wear a coat, so they're freezing cold. Because they're freezing cold, they want to sit in a warm car. And the only way to keep the car warm is to idle it. So that's what I see. And I also see it outside on 25th Street because I have a business on 25th Street and people hang out on 25th Street. Again, not a place I want them to idle because that's my business. I don't want the polluted air in my neighborhood. So I'm just putting it out there that maybe we could do something to educate people about idling. I would love that.
Thanks. More coats, better air. That's outside the box right there.
Do not wear coats.
Sorry. Oh,
Since I run a knitting business, I'd be more than happy to teach people how to knit a warm sweater.
okay. Thanks.
A hat, scarf, some mittens.
I'm a fish biologist. I could teach you about breathing underwater when you're swimming, maybe. Sorry, go ahead. Couldn't resist.
Angel Castillo, I'd like to thank you all so much for approving HB 411, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councilmember White, that it's not the answer. There is much more work that needs to be done, but I am pleased that we are at least starting. So if the foot is on the path, and at least we're moving in the right direction. You all know how I feel about housing. I'm going to echo everything that Jenny said, that we have a housing affordability problem and softer density that isn't going to impact the neighborhood feel is a good answer. And ADUs are controllable with a owner being on the property and helping managing things. But what I want to talk about is the Marshall White Center. I want to talk about a group of anywhere from 30 to 42 wonderful little old ladies that show up every Wednesday and sometimes Thursdays, and it's called Fern's Happy Hour. And one of them was here. And when I spent time talking with them, and they want an answer. They are part of a community that needs that pool. They can't get up, they can't make it to the narrow hours within a high school swim thing. We clearly don't have enough pools in Ogden for people to use, is what I'm learning as I continue to talk to people. But there is a need in that community, not just to have the center, but to have that pool. And it's been 2 years. And we talked about this before, and I know we've talked about the fact that there's perhaps a YMCA is going to be coming, and that's great. And if the trigger were pulled today, it wouldn't be built and it wouldn't be useful for an overly optimistic 2 years. And it won't be in the community that needs it the most. And it's really important that this community has a place to gather, and those little old ladies have a place to exercise their arthritic bones, and the young kids who don't have anything to do in the summer, and you talked about it in work session, you brought it up, that sports activities and keeping children engaged keeps them out of trouble. And there are a lot of nonprofits that are doing all that work, but we as a city should have a stake in that as well. We should be fully supporting the Marshall White Center, making sure that it is functioning at its full capacity so that the residents can continue to enjoy what they use to come together as a community. And I've been encouraging Fern's Happy Hour to group, you got to keep showing up and you got to keep talking. And there was one here, and the air quality was more important today. So I felt compelled to talk about the Marshall White Center, and we're going to continue talking about it because I need to see that you are taking a stand as leadership in council and telling us what you're doing and coming up with a plan so that people understand what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All righty. Comments from the mayor.
Sure. I appreciated the civil dialogue. This is obviously a really emotional issue for a lot of people. And as we don't have hard data and facts, it's hard to make what feels like the most responsible decision in this. But I do think I agree with a lot of people in that there's a direction here. And as we learn more, we'll make far better decisions. There were some comments about not having really done a whole lot as a city. We don't have a master plan for that, but I was just kind of off the top of my head thinking of some of the things we've done internally to address it, because it is a priority for us, and we have heard this, and I've felt this way. That's part of the reason I rode my bike to work every single day for a year, to help support some of these things. But I think everybody needs to know we've reduced our fleet sizes, downsized almost every one of the vehicles in our fleet. We've done energy audits. We have CNG vehicles that are out there now. We've made enormous investments in public transportation upgrades, bike and active transportation master plans, and a lot of upgrades in those facilities as well. The sustainability committee was a big thing, and as technology comes online, we have more tools. Technology is far better now than it was even just 5 years ago in terms of clean energy and everything else. So we've always kept our ear to the ground and looked for ways to make improvements, even though there wasn't that one 411 type of emotional goal that we could put out there. We have taken steps the entire way through that you guys have supported. And so to say nothing's happened and conversation hasn't been occurring, I think is not entirely correct. This was just a really emotional stake in the ground people could rally around, but it's been a priority for us for a long time. And I agree. I appreciate everybody coming and getting involved in the conversation. This was one of the fullest chambers we've had. And even though it was an emotional issue, I thought it was very respectful in the dialogue. Everybody allowed each other a chance to be heard and to be listened to. So I'm supportive of wherever we go with this in terms of looking at it, getting more information, and the measure twice, cut once approach to making investments with public dollars. So I appreciate everybody being here and the dialogue that occurred here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from council members?
Chair, I'll lead out. I want to thank Amy Sue and our council staff for providing the information and doing the late work on this. Amy has spent a lot of time and effort in this, and she's talked to Rocky Mountain and some of the other resources. So I want to thank her and our council staff for the time and effort that they put for this important issue. And then the other one is the snow removal. I think our streets department really was up against it. They probably hadn't seen this much snow for quite a while, and up on the bench area, it was even deeper than it was down in my area. So I appreciate them going forward and cleaning off the roads and spending the time when they wanted to spend with their families. It was a sacrifice, and I appreciate that. Christmas Village and the parade, every year it becomes this focal point for Ogden, and especially during this time of the year. I talked to Jay at the program there, and this is his 36th year with Christmas Village. I really appreciate what he has done. I thank him for his efforts. Because of Christmas Village, is because of his efforts and his crew, and I appreciate that. And by the way, Weber State by 10 points.
Only 10 against the triple option? I don't know. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have just one, and I think I kind of started off earlier today, and I think I would encourage our council leadership to look at maybe through our council norms, something to eliminate signs. I think that it's all great and groovy when we have signs that we all agree with, but they could come in with signs that gays go home or something, which even though that's not a weapon to from something that's going to hurt you physically, it does hurt you emotionally, or hurt some of us emotionally. And so I think we need to really look at that as a council norm. I'm not against free speech. I'm not against having people protest. I'm not against it. But in the chambers, I think it's a place where there's both sides need to be heard. And when people show up with just one side, it's it can be obviously one-sided. So I encourage our council leadership to look at changing our norms.
I would have responded very differently to a sign like the one you just described.
But it's no different than what they're doing. So.
And if I might just chime in about that, our norms already do kind of lean that way, that any kind of thing that is chilling to speech, which a sign certainly can be, is inappropriate. I think that's something that we maybe overlooked. I I think that I'm with you, Councilmember White. That ought to be considered as something that is prohibited in the chambers. Outside's a different issue, and even things that they use for their 3 minutes for is a different issue. But the signs, I think, are a problem. If I might just, while I still have, I'm chiming in. I want to kind of stress this point and encourage my council member colleagues as we're considering what is best. You know, we're talking about good, better, best stuff with this HB 411. Do we want to have Rocky Mountain Power spend a bunch of money putting up 100 more wind turbines, or 10 or 15 or 1,000 more acres of solar plants or solar farms that both have a detrimental effect on wildlife and are hugely, they gobble up a lot of land, that don't have the potential to solve the problem? Or do we want to see them start going down the road towards nuclear that can be put much closer than Wyoming and St. George, that will actually solve the problem? I just don't know why we would consider spending money on this other effort when we know it's not going to be the fix that we're looking for. And as council members, I hope we'll be responsible about this. It's been said over and over again that Ogden is a leader. Well, let's lead then. Let's not just follow. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich. I want to get back to addressing your comments about signs. I'm not known for my memory, but in my recent memory, I'm thinking of 2, and it might have been 3, unless they're bleeding together, circumstances in the last month or a little bit more where we've had signs in the chambers and it hasn't been an issue with other council members. I do think it's important that we're consistent in the application of our rules. I absolutely respect if anybody wants to put forward a change to our norms. I'm totally supportive of that. I don't think it's fair, however, to enforce it differently based on the issue. However, a sign like you had mentioned, Marcia, to me, I do think is very different, because I do think that is a very hurtful message for some, and it should be a hurtful message for all of us. And I would have personally, in my own discretion, responded differently to that kind of a sign. But I just want to give everybody the rationale that I was following, which was fair and consistent application of the rule, consistent with what we had done in the past and which did not elicit any concern from council members. So, but that's something I'm happy to help address. Hopefully in the next set of leadership, they'll take that on. It won't be me.
Didn't fill out your form?
No, I did not.
I'll just make a comment on that. First off, I'd like to thank Councilmember White for bringing that up and for addressing that. Last week, I believe, was the first time signs were prevalent. And I did ask council members, those around me. I think I even asked Janine.
I asked as well.
So I do believe it goes against our civility statement. I do believe that it doesn't create a more inviting environment, no matter what the sign says. I believe that. So I appreciate Councilmember White for trying to address it, being brave enough to address it, and for pointing out that it does go against, I believe, what we want to have in our chambers. And I would like to just thank Rich for, as mentioned earlier, being the kind of council member that truly is vested. He really is. I know when I'm not here, I'm not here. And Rich is not that mindset. When Rich is not here, he really wants to be here, and he takes every effort he can, and as do others. And I respect that about a lot of you. But tonight, I respect Rich for taking the time to make the effort to be part of this discussion.
Thanks, Mark. My comments were not a comment in opposition to the idea, just so you know.
Just quickly, there's a saying that says, it's a famous saying, it says, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. So although I disagree with some of the comments. Like, well, first of all, again, my hat off to Bart and Rich for speaking their mind and their conscience tonight. I really appreciate that. And I would just ask, my recommendation is that if there are concerns about the signs, that we talk about it, that we have a discussion, a conversation, a debate, etc., and then we make a decision, what we believe, and then we potentially look at what the potential violations to free speech might have to do with this. So that's the way I would approach it. Would be because I have a different opinion, but that's why we're a body of 7 and all our opinions count, and that's why we debate and discuss these things. So as opposed to making people feel uncomfortable about a norm and a rule that we don't know where it is, let's address it, and and if that's the way we need to go, then we'll go that way. My comment.
I think it's well to talk about it. I think it's very healthy to do that.
It also makes me think just a little bit about how people were wearing shirts that say certain things or have certain images on them or other things like that you can kind of go down that route.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that it may be wrong. I'm just saying let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it as a council.
That works. Yeah. We'll talk about it after January 4th. Okay. I'll just wanted to make the comment that we're missing a beloved and common voice in the chambers tonight. Ralph has been in the hospital, and I just wanted to share. I know that he's got a loud voice. He's got a loud personality and a big personality, and he's got a colorful past, etc. But he's also got a tremendous heart. And I got a phone call from him, and I was worried. I was really, really worried it was the last phone call from Ralph. It really sounded that way. And I think he genuinely was worried that it was too. And I share this with you because the nurses took a picture of him that I have on my phone, and you wouldn't believe the energy and the smile on this man's face in spite of what he was going through. I mean, the amount of pain related to the procedures that he has undergone is, it has to be immense. But to have that spirit and that smile in spite of it is a testament to his character. And I hope when he comes back, and I hope he makes it back, he just got out of 2 more surgeries today. And I got a message today that he made it through the procedures. Let's get back to work to help serve others. That's how much his desire to live through what he's going through today is so that he can get back to work serving others. And so when he gets back to work, I hope that we will honor his passion to help others. That's all I have to say. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Nope. Yes, sorry, to adjourn from this meeting. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lopez, second by Councilmember Chaburka to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned from this meeting. We'll shortly convene in the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting as soon as the recorder is ready. Okay. Thank you.
You're okay?
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm glad you said that.
I was worried about that.
Because we were worried. You're okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Edwin.
Good.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Come back next week. Oh, no, the week after. No,
Okay.
weekend.
We'll see you again soon. Okay, you're good? Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the December 3rd Special Redevelopment Agency meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present, including Board Member Heyer, who is joining us electronically. Please say hello, Board Member Heyer.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. Just a bit of business before we adjourn to a closed executive session. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting of April 9th, 2019. Board Member Lopez.
Yes, Chair Hire, I reviewed those minutes and I found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection. Chair Nadolski,
I've
sorry.
been called worse. It's okay. And for the closed session of April 9th, 2019, Board
Yes.
Member Blair.
Thank you, Chair Nadolski. I have reviewed those minutes, found them to be accurate, and in the time, I would go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the above minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Blair, second by Board Member White to adopt the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are passed. Next item is consideration of adjourning into a closed executive session.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adjourn into a closed executive session for one of the listed reasons.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hire to adjourn into closed executive sessions for one of the reasons listed on the agenda. By Board Member Hire, second by Board Member Lopez. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lopez.
Aye.
Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Board Member Blair.
Aye.
Board Member Hire.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Hi.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye. That passes. We will adjourn into a closed executive session. And just a reminder to those in attendance, we will be adjourning from this meeting in the closed executive session as well. So you won't be seeing us for the remainder of the evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for sticking it out.
See you, Rich.
Thank you.